Blasphemy is when you lie about somebody, when you lie about God specifically. If I said, there's all kinds of lies about God out there. If I said God brought that hurricane into North Carolina because there were some gay people there, that's blasphemy. That's lying about God. I could think of 1,000 things to say, right, that are just lies about God. And they are accusing Jesus of blasphemy. The little horn is doing blasphemy. He's lying about God. He's dragging God through the mud. And he's saying all these horrible things about God. And here Jesus is standing in trial, and the chief priest yells, "Blasphemy!" Ironically, he's accusing God of lying about himself. Blasphemy. Jesus says, from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God. From now on. I want you to catch something here. The reason Jesus comes to this earth, John 1:18, is to reveal the Father, to explain the Father. Because for so many years, the empires and the dragon behind the empires, even God's own people, God's own church, have been distorting the very character of God, so that we don't hardly recognize him. I mean, we have it in our secular society, in our culture today, right? If there's a tornado blows up your house and the insurance company comes in, they're going to bring in a thing for you to sign, and on the top of it, it's going to say this was an act of God on the insurance form. God did this. Sign this and we'll give you some money. There are so many distortions of God's character out there, and I'm just going to tell you, folks, it's not just them that have done it. We've done it too. And Jesus says, from now on. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the primary messages of Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter 8, and we're going to get into it even more here in a second, is that Jesus feels the need to clarify the Father. To say, hey, listen, this is not what God is like. This is what he's like. Oh, you ought to see him. He's great. From now on, if you want a clear picture, a clear vision of who God really is, don't look at creation. I mean, that's powerful and it's a part of who God is. Don't look at Egypt and the parting of the Red Sea. Incredible story, part of who God is. If you want a perfect idea of who God is, look at the trial and the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. This is your God. It's not very majestic, is it? Letting your creation beat the snot out of you. It's not very majestic to have a crown of thorns on you so blood's running down your face. It's not very majestic to have stripes along your back that are so deep you can see bone. It's not a very majestic picture of God, is it? And some would argue with me and say, no. That is not my God. My God is going to be the powerful, glorious, returning, triumphant. That's a part of it. But I want to remind you of something. In Revelation chapter 5, there's a picture of the throne room in heaven. And the person sitting on the throne in heaven is a slaughtered lamb. This is how he intends to run the universe, ladies and gentlemen. Self-sacrificing love. Turn the other cheek, love. Love your enemy, love is the only power that runs this universe. Anything else is probably a little distortion of the truth. Hard to swallow because we want winners. We want people that fight back. We want champions. We want Goliath. Oops. So let's go to chapter 8. Chapter 8 is just like chapter 7. There's some animals and there's some horns. But I want you to read this with me because this gets crazy. It gives you a little more closer look at the empires, the dragon behind them, and how this has so influenced our world. Daniel 8:4. I watched the ram as it charged toward the west and the north and the south. No animal could stand against it, and none could rescue from its power. It did as it pleased and became great. Every time I hear that word, I think of Tony the Tiger. Great! And he knew he was great. This ram was like, oh yeah, look at me. I got the curly horns. But then the ram is replaced by a goat in verse 8. The goat became what? Very great. The first one was like, yahoo, look at me. And the other one was like, oh yeah, you're great, but I'm very great. And then we get back to this little horn type of a power. Out of one of them came another horn, verse 9, which started small but grew in power to the south and to the east and toward the beautiful land. It grew, now get this is so important to understanding Daniel 7 and 8. You need to know who dirtied up the sanctuary. And I'm just going to tell you, there's some pretty bad Adventist theology out there that blames everybody but this for dirtying up the sanctuary. Anyway, we'll get to that next week. No complaining in church. So verse 9, out of one of them came another horn which started small, but it grew to the southeast toward the beautiful land. Verse 10, it grew until it reached the host of heaven. Okay, now we're not even on earth anymore. Now in this dream, we're in heaven, and it threw some of the starry hosts down to the earth and trampled on them. And check verse 11 out. It set itself up to be as great. Okay, there was great, and then there's very great. And look at this one. It set itself up to be as great as the commander of the army of the Lord. Who is the commander of the army of the Lord? That would be Jesus. And he's saying, I'm as great as Jesus. It took away the daily sacrifice from the Lord, and his sanctuary was thrown down. He went into the sanctuary, and he messed it up like these teenagers messed up that $5 million house. He absolutely drug God's name through the mud, spread rumors and lies, deceived a third of the heavenly host, and then he brought the war to heaven at the tree. You think God's telling you the truth? I mean, who died and made him? Oh, God. And he started getting us questioning God, didn't he? God shows up to see his kids. Hey, kids, where are you? What do Adam and Eve do? They run and they hide. Where are you? We're behind the bush. Why? We're so afraid. They were afraid of God. For the first time ever in the universe, humans were afraid of God. Did God change? No. What they believed about God changed. And this is the effort of the dragon and the empires and the dragon behind people in the church to get you to believe a lie about God. Got to be afraid. In the book of Revelation, Jesus comes back to get his kids. He can't wait to get his kids. And there are people so terrified that they run and they call for rocks to fall on them. They try to run and hide in caves. I can't imagine. I mean, can you imagine as a dad, Juan, walking into the house and having the kids go, oh, he's home, run! That doesn't happen, right? Okay, good. And then John puts this little twist in there that I love. They're terrified of the wrath of the baby sheep. John's trying to tell you, it doesn't make sense to be afraid of God. They've been duped. Now, lest you think it's all those other, I'm supposed to be sitting down, I can't do it. Lest you think it's all those other churches that get it all wrong about God. Please, don't be so arrogant. Don't think that you have the truth and that's it. No more need to learn. My favorite quote of today is from Mark Twain. It's easier to fool people than to convince people that they have been fooled. Ask anybody that believes differently than you in the political realm. Right? I know I'm right. It's all you idiots that have it wrong. This news of the trashing of the sanctuary, of dragging God's name through the mud, so upsets Daniel that he's distraught. But it's not just Daniel that's distraught. There's an angel in heaven that's the messenger that also gets wrecked by delivering this news. He is gone. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to him, "How long will it take for the vision to be fulfilled?" He just can't stand it. This has to be fixed. You got to find who wrecked the house, and you got to fix the house. And you got to do it. The vision concerning the deity sacrifice and the rebellion that causes desolation, the surrender of the sanctuary, and the trampling underfoot of the Lord's people. How long is it going to last? And then there's this weird sentence in Daniel chapter 8, verses 14, that is the justification of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, or at least our beginning. The answer comes back. Okay, it's going to get fixed. It's going to get fixed. In 2,300 days, the sanctuary is going to get cleansed. And this comes as a relief. Oh, good, there's going to be an end to this thing. Okay, 2,300 days. You've heard about it. If you grew up in Adventism, the 2,300-day prophecy. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you all the math and tell you how to figure this out. Okay, I'm not going to do that. You can figure that out. It's all over the internet. Find it for yourself. Here's what I will do. I will tell you that sometimes in prophecy, it's smart, it's prudent, and it works to substitute a day with a year and a year with a day. They kind of go like this, right? And the prophecy starts, all of Protestantism would say, the prophecy starts at 457 BC when the decree to rebuild Jerusalem is decreed. And you add 2,300 days to that, and you come up to, if you substitute years for days, to 1844. Now, there's all kinds of controversy about whether this is a valid or a legitimate thing. I'm not going to get into any of that either. You can just argue with yourselves. I don't care. Sorry. I have an incredible spiritual gift to go, What happens in 1844 that begins the process of the cleaning of a sanctuary? A group of people get something very, very wrong. All these people from all these different Protestant churches come together, and they're studying Daniel chapter 8:14, and they're doing the math, and they think that the sanctuary is the earth, and 1844, Jesus is coming back in 1844. That's when the second coming is going to happen. Oh, we can't wait. This is great. And they start telling their neighbors and friends, and their neighbors and friends are going, I don't know. This is a little weird. You can't come to my church anymore. And now there's all these outcasts in Christianity that are meeting together, and they're studying, and they study Jewish calendars and Greek calendars and Roman calendars. They finally come up with the day, October 22, 1844. That's when Jesus is going to come, and they are sure of it. And on October 22, 1844, a whole bunch of thousands and thousands of Christians in the United States and other parts of the world stand and wait, some of them on a kind of a knob of a hill with specially sewn ascension robes ready to go to heaven. Okay. They must have like those squirrel suits that you jump off of cliffs and fly. That'd be kind of cool. And they stand there and they wait. And then October 23 happens. One person that was there said, our fondest hopes and dreams were dashed. A lot of sorrow, a lot of embarrassment. Nobody in their old churches wanted them back, so they just started meeting together and studying the Bible. And from that mistaken idea of Daniel 8:14, 2300-day prophecy, they started to come up with stuff that they had never seen in the Bible before. And most of that stuff, in a nutshell, said, whoa, whoa, whoa. We thought God was like this, but he's even better than that. This is what doctrine is. We're going to talk about it next week. Every time they found a new concept, it was like, oh, we thought he was like this, but no, he's like this. In a nutshell, what they found was God is way more like Jesus than we thought he was. In fact, he's just like, he is Jesus. It blew their doors off. And they started collecting these beliefs and getting this clearer picture of God, and then started preaching it all over the world. I'm just going to tell you, the cleansing of the sanctuary is the worldwide spread of truth versus lies about God. This is the cleansing of the sanctuary. Every time you tell somebody how good God is, as opposed to the bad news that they've heard about him, you are sweeping a little dirt pile out of the sanctuary. Every time you vindicate God with your words and actions and give him a good name, you are a part of the cleansing of the sanctuary. The purpose of the Seventh-day Adventist Church on earth is to tell the whole world how much God is love. It's our purpose. So what do? We spend millions and millions of dollars trying to figure out if God can call a woman to stand up and preach. Idiots. Bless their heart. What are we doing? We're supposed to be the light of the world, the city on the hill. We argue. The cleansing of the sanctuary is the standing up and saying to the whole world, God's not like this, he's like this. And boy, when you embrace that, it's a life and a world changer. It is bringing the kingdom of heaven on earth, just like Jesus prayed. We're to be about that business. Only Jesus and Jesus alone, again and again and again. If you want to know what God's like, root yourself in Jesus. Find your place in him. Study him over and over and over again. Find those new vistas and those new revelations, and you know what's going to happen? You're going to start to know the Father, and you're going to start to brag about him. Oh. And as you share that wonderful news about Jesus with the world, the sanctuary gets cleansed. And in Jesus' words, in Matthew 24, when this gospel, this is what the gospel is, gets through the whole world, the sanctuary gets cleansed, and we get to be with our best friend forever. Let's be about the business of cleansing the sanctuary.